We're live.
And we're All right. So let's move on to the next topic, please. Hey. Tommy, again, support restore backup to different volumes simultaneously. Ooh, I should update what we're talking about.
There is a background that we already support to create volumes by backup and or maybe restore the backup to volumes. So I think what I'm proposing here is not a brand new features. We just want to improve these features. Although some doesn't like it, but some like this is proven. And we just want to eliminate or remove the limitation that only one restoring task can be allowed in our similar services. Because in our enterprise public cloud, the administrators want to use the backup to quick deploy hundreds of volumes in these features.
Why do they should use clients for that?
Yes, we do have another approaches to quick deploy different volumes, but what I'm saying here is not saying which one is better or which one is more incorrect, which one is more correct. We just want to provide another way to our customers to tell them that you can use these features to deploy your volumes.
But why do we prevent this at all today?
What?
Why do we prevent two restores?
Well, the technical thing that prevents it is the status of the backup, I think, while you're doing the separation of the
Does
state.
the state machine changes state and you can't start another restore?
I think so.
Yes. And for those trunk-based drivers or any drivers that will consume a lot of CPUs or memories, we will introduce backend configuration options to allow administrator to decide how many tasks can be allowed in your services.
Well, could anything go wrong if we didn't transition the state of the backup?
Well,
You have to prevent them from getting deleted or something.
Okay, so we need somebody to lock it while restore is proceeding, so no one can destroy it.
I think we are jumping to how we want to do it instead of.
I'm just wondering why this isn't already allowed.
because we have clients to do this.
And we have
This
cloud
is not
volumes.
what backup is for. It's the reason we don't do it.
I mean, I agree that the use case is questionable, but again, why prevent it if it's technically possible?
First of all, because
Do we need more features?
my point of view, that's why I have a -2 on dispatch. Is that, first of all, the concept of backups don't seem to match with, I want to create 100 volumes from a backup. It's like, you want to restore a backup, you don't want to create 100 volumes of the same backup.
I mean, a better workflow would be to restore it once and then clone that thing 99 times.
Yeah, but still, a better flow is you have a volume you have created, you like it to create an image from that volume, and then you use that one. Or you create a volume as a golden image, and then you clone that one. But creating a backup, which in all the drivers we have, is a very slow operation, very, very slow. And then using a restore, which is also slow, and consumes a lot of memory with the default configuration for each backup or each restore you're doing, you're consuming 1.8 gigabytes of RAM. So when you launch 30 or 100 restores at a time, you are consuming quite a bit of memory.
Yeah, but I mean, you could work around that by billing people a lot for doing restores and then letting them figure out that it's a bad idea.
Or we could just say no and do it the right way, which is clone the volume.
There's a lot of technical debt already in the backup area. There's a lot of stuff in there that's not that robust and needs to be worked on. And doing something like this is gonna.
That's not the purpose of backup anyway.
Right, it's not.
That was my
So
primary concern. It's like, this is not purpose.
This is also gonna be a nightmare to do with this generic backup thing, because we're gonna have to figure out if every volume driver works in this context. And it's back up for you and I want to do it.
I just wonder why
Yeah.
people want to use large ones as backups instead of just.
Because in our use case, our backend
They'll
restore
just refund it.
restore the backup to volumes very fast.
They'll probably be calling you, to let you know.
Couldn't they just do a restore one time and then clone it? And just saying,
So we could
Yeah, they
restore
should
the
just
backup
do
to
something
different
like that.
volumes in a very short time. How could we don't need to restore the volume, the backup to volumes and then clone the volumes.
But
it's one implementation.
Is are your backups stored as they are usually recommended in a different backend? Or you're using the same backend to store
We use the same backup.
it? That's the primary
That's
problem.
not a backup then, that's just.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot.
Yeah, the thing is that usually you store in a different backend and even you should be backing them in a different availability zone.
Yeah.
That's what backups, usually the procedure says, it's like you don't store your backups on the same pool, the same backend, otherwise use just a snapshot.
So this whole feature is kind of based on this idea of using backups in a way that backups shouldn't be used anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do we have any way to ensure that people are doing backups the right way?
We allow
people, if they're gonna go
Yeah.
out of their way to configure backup, would point it to a backup system and not to the same place.
If you're pointing your backup to the same place you're creating your volumes to begin with, you're not doing it right.
Right, that's not,
Tell me, how is a backup different than a snapshot on your system?
You mean the speed?
I mean, a backup
it's just,
semantically really is a snapshot, it's just a snapshot that's somewhere else, right?
it sounds like it's, in this case, it's just a volume clone that's called a backup instead.
In our case, the backup can cross the ADs. That's the difference.
Well, we can work on bugs about AZs without changing the backup system.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think this is a good idea.
So you can restore cross AZs also this fast?
Yes.
But the thing is that the ACs is an abstraction. You can actually be using the same backend
Yeah.
and calling different ACs.
Real
which
different.
That's what
That's
we are
what
Right.
so it's-
That's the difference.
It's not an
None of this makes sense then.
No.
We cannot use snapshots to cross AZs, but we can use backup to cross AZs to
That's not-
restore
that's
the
not what our
backup.
backup is.
Only through the restore. The backup creation does not support cross ACs backup.
If you back up
Because
in
I
the same
just have
place,
a patch for that.
you don't have an AZ.
Right, you don't.
I mean, you get that the purpose of a backup is in the case that you
Might
have
as well
a
just call
hardware
it a
failure
pool.
or the
Yeah.
On the same
data
backend.
goes away.
Really.
The copy somewhere else that you can restore from. That's why the feature exists. And it sounds like in your case, you couldn't do that. If the hardware were to go down, you couldn't even restore the backup.
Which is not good.
Everyone else who's done backup has done it to a separate place for that explicit reason.
Let me ask another question. Sorry if it's a dumb question, but you mentioned that restoring backups consume a lot of resources, right? What if we have several tenants using the restore backup functionality at the same time, all different volumes, each their own? Do we have a queue system or how? No.
It's the same problem we had with the copy.
We just
start
error
at the same
We
time.
can only do one.
No, you can do as many as you want. The problem is that you start consuming resources.
Oh.
So when you can do, I've done 30 backups at the same time. And you don't want to know what happens to the machine doing that. But it can do that. It's just that each one of them takes 1.8 gigabyte of RAM at least. And they are all then doing CPU intensive operations to calculate the SHA and the MD5. And so in the end, since we don't have any restrictions, we end up using a lot of resources. So trying to restore 100 with any of the drivers that we have, even with the RBD, which is the one that would consume less, it's still a big burden. So it's not that we cannot do it, it's that it's, besides the conceptual thing, which was my primary concern, that this is not what they are for. We also have the limitations on how our implementation works, which they don't have because they have a custom backup driver that is a lot faster. So,
We have the same problem with resource usage with the copy volume to image and image to volume, because every one of those you do, if it does it on the cinder node, is very intensive. And we've actually talked about separating these types of operations out into a data service multiple times, but we've never actually done it. Because it would be nice to be able to spread that out across, however many nodes you want to deploy that on, and you can increase the bandwidth for creating multiple volumes from image. But the image cache kind of helps prevent that.
Just a question, Tommy. Is there any difference between the speed between you restoring a volume to restoring the backup to a volume and then creating 99 volumes from that one, or restoring one backup from the 100 volumes?
The second one will be faster.
The second one.
We're storing one.
100 backups.
2 different volumes.
How would that be faster? That means there's something wrong with your volume clone.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Why don't you use this for clone then?
That doesn't make any sense. If that's faster than clone, doesn't work right.
Yeah.
I don't.
Because these are only clone volume operations, right? All things are.
Maybe creating a backup is the slow part, rather than restoring from backup. Because to clone, you'd have to do both to create and to restore.
Then don't create a backup.
Maybe it's only fast if you restore from something that's redundant, not something that's writable.
I don't know.
Maybe they have all the volumes of their storage pointers pointing to the same backup, because they're doing everything in the same storage.
Yeah, that's me track. Would any backend use this other than your backend? I don't think so.
No.
Yeah, because I still think the idea of preventing multiple restores is kind of a lame. I mean, obviously doing 100 restores in parallel is lame.
I mean, I agree, but this is not a reason to change. And none of this makes sense. And we probably have enough stuff in backup to fix currently without making it harder.
But it also sounds like there's a bug in quality driver or implementation issue. But maybe, I don't know how much we care about addressing things like that.
which
The backup isn't really a backup on the whole way.
So that's not a driver thing, that's a configuration thing.
Okay.
I mean, I guess the one relevant question I have here is I mean, the use case doesn't seem appropriate. But if, in general, if you are trying to restore a system that's gone down, oh, no, because can you restore multiple different volumes at the same time?
Yeah.
You just can't, but you can't restore one volume
multiple times.
to multiple different volumes. Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Different volumes.
never mind.
That's
That's
a state tracking that is,
right.
that prevents it.
But really the valid use case is I'm trying to bring my system back up and I want to run a bunch of different volumes restoring.
Restore all
Do
my
that.
shit, right?
Yeah, okay.
Another point is that I think we should avoid the redundant functionalities, because there would be two functionalities to maintain that they essentially accomplish the same thing again.
Well, that's why it's important. What Orca's original point was to say backup is for backup and not for doing volume control operations.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole distinction there is that backup goes to some other storage.
Mhm.
I have to ask, because we are able to restore multiple volumes at the same time actually.
If they're different volumes.
No, but we use the same backup.
No,
No, it's
you can't do that. It should say we can do multiple backups at once in parallel instead of volumes. Sorry. So I think we're in agreement that this is not something we want to do.
That's right.
What's that? Except for.
For me.
Duly noted.
Where's your wah wah?
It's all ready to go for the next. That hits 1 1/8 trombone. I mean,
opinion.
So, but to his case, if he wants to do it from an image,
You can do that already.
you can do that already.
Yeah.
So it's not like you don't have a solution, you just can't do it from backup. Well,
Yeah,
that's because backup is.
Yeah, I mean, image is the normal thing that people use for this.
Or they create themselves the golden image as a body and they clone it instead of relying on the internal mechanism of Cinder to do the caching.
It just sounds like that due to the limitations of their back end, it's most efficient to do it this way, which
I
it
still
doesn't
I still
correlate.
can be fixed.
I don't understand that.
But they could still somehow do it if the problem was something like, if they create a read-only image, it's faster to the cloning, then they could use LANs using their backend as the storage backend, create the images, and then do like the RPG driver does, that if the source from LANs is in the same storage, it clones and it doesn't transfer the data. You have an optimized path if the limitation, the speed up is caused by having a read-only image.
What if you could create a volume from a snapshot, but in a different AZ?
We cannot,
Well, if you could,
yes.
would that like address this particular use case? Because it sounds very similar to what you're actually doing.
It could be.
Like, why don't we allow creating a volume from an image in another AZ? Or volume from a snapshot, I'm sorry, volume from a snapshot.
It's due to the background, we have different
We're
backgrounds.
talking winds over 50 miles an hour.
If snapshot's in another AZ, then I don't think you can really see it in the context of making a volume with 6 to 12 inches of snow.
I have another question.
It's not gonna be here all weekend.
Can we create volumes by images? Or can we create different volumes from the same images at the same time?
Yes.
I guess we have a lock to prevent that happening.
Oh, yeah, I know. You mean the log we have in the caching? That we have a log for the method that is called download and use from cache or
Yeah.
whatever.
That's just
Yeah.
a copy.
No, and actually do the copy.
Well, I wouldn't work on fixing some of that. That was just so that you didn't get multiple copies in the cache.
Yeah, but you still do them serially. We can, I was looking into that yesterday, and we can narrow the log, so it's only to do the check, and so that you don't get phrase conditions. Right now, the log is quite broad, so if you log the whole write operation, that's just an improvement we can easily do. Well, we can do it.
Okay.
That's something that it's can be considered a bug, because you have a log that is preventing concurrent creation.
When did that, just fixing that bug was, when did that happen?
I don't remember.
It wasn't originally that way.
It was,
I know.
it was added because there were customers complaining that whenever they populated the cache, it would populate like 5 entries of the same image.
That's fine.
Five times as efficient, right?
depends on the back.
Yeah.
For like my array, it's fine. Okay. I'll let it.
It works fine for everybody, it's just a little.
It looks really weird. If you do like Tinder volume lists and I can see them all. I get that.
So we can just narrow down the log, because right now the log is for the whole operation.
Yeah.
Download and use it. So you don't want to log also for the use.
Right. Yeah, we should fix that.
That's what I was saying. We can fix it.
Can somebody write a bug on that? You know, what is the bug for? I got lost there.
Narrowing the lock scope on creating volume from the image cache.
How do I go about it? Who wants that action item?
I would get to write the bug down.
Hey, Bishop?
Sure. How about it?
All right. Mr. McGinnis has something to tell me.
It's in the create volume flow on the manager, on the create from image cache or download method that it has the log. That's
Anybody else have trouble with IRC Cloud in Chrome, like just
What's streaming all your
consuming all your memory?
Yes.
Yeah.
Stop using. Quick solution. Yeah. I use log, read log for command, but that kills my routine. Every time I have to restart a little bit over.
IRC is known to be pretty demanding. There's all those messages around.
Engineering.
Yeah.
Yeah, generally if I like close it and restart it, it's okay, but then whenever it's been up for a while, it makes my processor go crazy.
Usually I have
It
to
is
close the
CNC
whole
bouncer.
Chrome. It's not enough only closing the tab, because if you close on the tab, the memory is still locked, like it's still owned by Chrome. Then I have to close Chrome and then open all tabs again.
I haven't, it's just, it doesn't run slow after I close it, but close the tab.
I mean, mine stables out right about 14 gigs. That's apparently how much it needs.
I wonder if somebody should open the buzzy on
Buzz, yeah.
for that. I'm paying for your product, fix it. Okay. All right, so we're done on that topic, I think. Now that I have digressed. All right. So, let me update PTG font. Right. Okay, so automatic config generation, this came up in the meeting a couple weeks ago. Was it you, Rodrigo, who brought this up?
This is the sample config stuff.
So, yeah, so, well, no, this is beyond that. It's the, fact that, so we've got all those pretty tables that are in various driver documentation for config options. Because the full sample config we've got taken care of.
Okay.
But it's not clear that the tables that each driver has that explain their config options are being kept updated.
I didn't know we had that. I don't think I've seen that.
Weren't those just manually added by the
Yes.
driver people?
Yes, and the thing is that shouldn't really be how it's done. We've got there's an Oslo Syncs plugin that should make it so that we can do that all automatically.
So there's like doc strings that have information in them, and instead they should be attached to the config options themselves.
No, right now there's RST files that have tables in them that people have manually added.
It wasn't told at some point that was the typing unit process of generating those tables. So it was not entirely manual.
Can we get a link to, just so we know what we're talking about?
Sure.
I'm just kind of curious what it is.
Why is it so hard to type up there? Right. So if we go to docs, list, go to config reference, and we go to volume drivers. And we take a look at, no, for fun, let's see what's in the OBM. All right. So right now we've got something like this. Which,
Yeah, so we should be somehow generating this stuff dynamically instead of.
exactly. And like, for instance, is this even right that this would be a default section item now that we've got?
Not really.
Yeah, so, shit, this just got bigger. So that's what I'm concerned about is.
Well, I mean, I look at a lot of options related stuff in reviews, and I didn't know this whole thing. So I mean, yeah.
So, action item, make cores aware that this is a thing.
I've known this for a while, but they are, like you're saying, kind of out of date at the time. So I just go and look at their code. The problem to the code is that the driver code usually inherits from another class. You have to go to the other class, check what other configuration options are actually being used there, and then the generic ones. And then
So if you pull up the LVM file that has that table, it says that it's automatically generated. So what is not happening?
That's something that we did at some point.
It was, the code that was doing that has been deprecated and we have not caught up.
So what are all the other projects that?
They are doing.
They don't know Oslo Speaks.
Yeah.
Extension.
So
They're just using that.
what's that?
They're using the Speaks extension, the
Yeah.
Oslo config one.
Yeah.
So that's the one being used for generating those samples.
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay. Has any, I guess part of what I'm interested in here, is if anybody else has done this before. It sounds like not, and since people weren't even aware that it's out there.
I always do it manually.
Do it
When a customer asks me, I just go check what the specific driver uses.
Yep.
And and load that way. So it's not very convenient.
Okay.
So this would be done as part of our doc gel?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a magic, the way I understand it is like in here, instead you put a magical tag that tells us those things to go out and find the config options in the code and then automatically generates them. So, all right, so the answer is nobody else has done this before. If nobody wants to volunteer, I can try to do it since I'm kind of tackling doc stuff. Is that what people would like?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't think this is going to be trivial
No.
because of the inheritance and that we don't really know which configuration option the driver is using.
Not only that, like the manually created tables probably have more description than like just the config option does, right? So
Well, it should get put in the config option.
Yeah.
it should.
If this is
Right.
where we're going, then it
It
should
would
be.
need to be moved,
Yeah, and if they're not the same description, how do you know which one's right?
Well, we can generate stuff with the new tool and then look at the diff
Yeah.
view.
I guess my point is, what like there'll be some manual auditing, right?
Are you just talking about only the table that's there?
Right.
The table, just the table? That's
Yeah.
there?
What's the whole page, right?
No,
No, it's just
no.
that table.
Just that
Just the
table
Look
with
at the
config
link. If you look
information.
at the other link that I put in the Etherpad, you can see what that actually is. It's 120.
Is it possible to generate the whole page from the driver?
We don't
Oh.
want to do.
No, you
Okay.
don't want to, because
This
there's,
is literally just the config options.
Okay.
It's generate a file.
And the docs team takes that and turns it into that
Our
HTML
tooling
page.
does that.
Mhm.
Our tooling does that already.
Oh,
It's in there.
this is RST that then gets, it's an include file
Oh,
that then gets pulled into the doc and merged.
all merged together.
So I think what we want to do is we want to get rid of this include file. We want to have it point to the code instead where it gets generated and pulled in from the code. But then the problem that you guys are highlighting is, okay, well, if this is more verbose.
I thought the idea was that we were gonna run the tool and it was just gonna update this file, and we were still gonna have this file.
We're gonna need it for every driver, right?
What's that?
We're gonna need it for every driver.
Right. I'm not sure how that'll work out.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, in theory, need this file since it's just a copy of the code.
What,
But
right.
I don't know.
So
So I was just groping around to see what projects are using Oslo Sphinx.
Yeah.
And it looks like a lot of spec repos are, but Cinder specs isn't. Should we be doing something with it there too?
I don't,
I don't know.
if you don't know what they're using it for. Well, there's multiple extensions to Oslo things.
Oh, I thought that was the extension.
No, no, because I believe there's like a big extension, bless you. There's a bunch of different extensions that do different things, is how I understand it. So here's what I'm getting from this is So I think we're in agreement that, needs to be investigated and understood as far as how this can be automated / updated.
Do we know when this stopped being updated?
I think when we cut over to using our local repository, when we brought docs over from the doc team.
During Pike?
That was, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That seems like that was not that long ago, but yeah, it was. So we shouldn't be that horribly out of date. And I know that people who have made changes to config options, at least some of them have manually updated the documentation. Because there were questions about that, and then that's what generated this. So I'm kind of thinking the action item for me is to figure out how to bring in the extension for Oslo Sphinx. Try migrating over the LVM driver to be automated as a first patch. Make sense?
Yep.
So figure out how to use it and then move LVM over and get everybody's agreement that it looks okay, and then I'll start working incrementally on other config options for other drivers.
Somehow I don't think we're going to be able to automate this, but
Yeah, so for example, nobody has completely dropped those tables. Well, they're probably just.
But for them, it's a lot easier because they have different sections for each driver, for example, which we don't have yet. So it's difficult to say which configuration is for which driver.
because we dynamically look for the section based on the names that are in the enable backends. So we don't, and anything can go in there, basically.
And that allows.
Well, just getting them updated, even if they all still say default, would be a good start.
No, but I'm not talking about whether it says default or not. It's about that you don't know which configuration options are actually used. You can know which ones are defined within the file that the driver is using, but not which ones are inherited from somewhere else.
Oh, shit.
That's
Yeah.
the problem.
Why so?
So
Because you don't know which actual configuration options you're using. For example, there's a SAN primary IP configuration option
Right.
that it's inherited from a base class driver, and then you use it in your driver.
Right.
But when you try to dynamically know what configuration
Oh,
option you're
because-
using, you have no idea.
Because the goal is to have the page for that driver show that option too.
Yeah, because it's being used. Like you were saying, we don't have static sections. We can give any name to a backend section. I don't know.
Well,
if I explained.
We do have a name now, actually, for backend defaults or whatever.
yeah, but for example, if you need the configuration for the LVM driver, but only those configurations, you won't be able to separate them.
You can get all the configuration options that there are, but not which ones are specific to each driver.
Yeah.
It's hard to do it manually, to go checking the code, so
Yeah.
automatically it's even harder.
Yeah.
It probably can be done if you start analyzing the classes, which base driver uses it, it's pure maths, I think. Automatic.
Yes.
You see it.
Okay, so,
But I'm still not sure how that would get in the way of just updating the current scheme of what we have now.
No, I'm just talking if you want to do it automatically, it generates that table automatically. I don't think you're going to add all the
The
configuration
table
options.
supposedly was already generated automatically.
Yeah, probably missing stuff.
Right, so it can continue to be missing stuff for now, but we could at least have them not be horribly out of date too.
Well, I think generally the approach has been, that the config items that are specific to that driver are generated like this. Yeah, what we're coming to is I need to go dig into this and figure out what's really wrong and what's right and start, throwing in weekly meetings or proposal to try to improve it.
Yeah.
But I mean, the number of times I've went and Googled and found options, it's like, oh, that's not there anymore, or that's not documented or something needs to be fixed. And so
Just start with the core options that doesn't have drivers related, and
You don't know which ones are, which are.
I mean, ideally, it would be nice to be like, okay, the SAM related drivers, we pull out the SAM, make an include file for it, and then all of the drivers that use those options then included in their documentation.
That seems like it would be doable somehow.
So the problem is what do we do then? Because not every driver though is guaranteed to use all of the SAM config options. And then you'd have to go through each driver and pick out which one. Wow.
It's similar to
we
the
go through the
problem.
code and see what option the driver is touching.
Yeah.
It's similar to the problem we've had forever with documenting which options you have to set in the back end versus the default section. And it's ideally, this would fall into
Well,
stuff Cork is talking about too.
none of this has been updated since we put the back end.
I'm not talking about the back end option. I'm talking about ever since we made multi-back end a long time ago.
Yeah, I agree.
Everyone who deploys stuff has been confused for years about which section the option actually needs to go in because it's not obvious.
Yeah.
But I think, okay.
And there are options that can go into the full section and in the driver at the same time.
Yeah. But like I was saying, I think the first step should be just update the things and then we can worry about all these other things.
Okay.
Because just getting them to not be all stale would be a good start.
Is there a way to label them in code, which section they belong
We
to?
might have to add some Oslo config extension or something, but I'm sure there's some way we could make it happen.
Well, yeah, there's this whole class hierarchy that Nova was doing.
Well, but the problem is you have some options that apply to both drivers and non-driver stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure.
What example?
I can't remember, but I'm sure one of them that's popping out of my head is like the SSL cert verification stuff. But that may be only drivers.
The flag turned off? The flag to turn the SSL?
That was maybe only drivers, but
I think that's on driver specific. That one I added.
yeah.
And it seems like a good first look at it would be to see if we can label the option somehow so we know in code where to go. And then whatever we have generating the docs would also use that.
This is a side question. Do we actually document that shared backend section?
There was a release note with it.
No, that's not really documentation.
Pat, did you document anything when you added the shared backend section? You did that, didn't you?
Yeah, there should be something.
Is there, other than a release note?
Should be.
Okay.
I don't know where it is, but like, I know I documented it because I told people to use it. I'd like to believe that I didn't just tell them to use it, not how. It's possible, I guess, but
Okay.
I don't know. I can go look and see where in my like area history probably commit. That's that.
Because I don't remember seeing any documentation come through on that, but.
Yeah, I don't either, and I was really excited about finally getting that feature, so I'm not sure.
Maybe I only updated the pure documentation. Secret feature.
All right. All right, so this is apparently a much bigger black hole than I expected. So I'm glad we're in agreement that we have a problem, and I will.
I'm glad that we're sync assigned.
The schedule says we can spend another whole hour on this stuff.
You know, maybe I'll spend
Life.
life. Yeah, I'll spend the life on. Actually, most of my time in Cinder has been spent in config options in one way or another. So I guess I should. Though this is something is we have another topic that if I can dig up and figure out what we need to do, if we had an intern come along who wanted something to be useful to us, it may not be the most exciting thing is the problem, but.
Handling the config option stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
I wouldn't hand that to an intern.
Yeah, I think that this is interesting because it's not related to storage, because usually things related to, that deeply related to storage takes more time to understand, and this is basically Python.
Yeah, but you're not gonna be able to sort out the config options unless you understand all the code.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that you have to have a pretty intimate knowledge of Cinder to understand the logic and hierarchy of all those options, where to go along.
Sleeping with Cinder for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like a pretty critical thing though, I think.
Right. So this may be the most, as far as priorities go, this may be the most important documentation thing we need to tackle this release.
Is there any hope of,
There is no hope. It is irreparably broken.
So while Queens is still fresh, is there any hope of fixing this and fixing it in Queens as well, so that Queens actually has proper documentation?
That's the first thing I was thinking about too.
Yeah, because that would,
If it's this bad.
people would really like that if we fix it, it's there too. I guess we'll have to see what the fix looks like, I guess.
Yeah.
Just as they're opening the wrapper in Queens, it still smells good.
Get that new Cinder smell.
New Cinder smell. We could have an unboxing party.
Yeah. You open it, it's just a cloud.
Anthrax, no. So depending on what the fix is, we certainly
We should consider it.
we should be able to backport it. Backporting doc changes is not as huge a deal as.
Well, one thing that maybe, I guess even if we have to pull in a requirement, we can still backport it if we do it right.
Yes.
You just have to bump the minor version. when we do the release.
All right, I will take that to look at. People may need to throw things at me on occasion, Eric, to make sure I'm doing it. So, okay. Anything else people want to talk about on that one? Wish me luck.
It's gonna be CI.
Okay. 6 PCI. Seriously? Okay, moving on to our post-lunch topics. Yay!
We have another config one down there.
Yeah, I know. Well, this next one should be short. And then we'll hit the config option one and we'll see where we're at. Okay, so back at the Queens PTG, we spent time talking about trying to get release notes consolidated so that instead of having, you know, the XYZ driver having 5 or 6 different release notes, we have one release note that we'd update for that driver with information about it. I don't think we enforced that at all in Queens, or at least not very well.
I don't really remember what we decided to do there.
Well, the answer was we should try to do this, and I don't think that really got well communicated. So do we care enough?
Well, I'm kind of curious, like, if we look at the release notes for Queens, like, what's the main example of this?
So,
So there's like a handful of store-wise and a handful of VMAX.
exactly. And the goal was to, under here, is it under, yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure that in that interface you can really tell which ones are the Queens ones.
Yeah,
You're in the right directory.
I was.
You have to like sort them by time because that's how this works, I think.
How do you even do that?
Well,
10 months ago, 11 months ago, a year ago. Oh, wow. Bug, cinder, create. Some of them start with the driver name. So, I mean, just spitballing. But then people like Dell EMC were mad because they had merge conflicts when they had multiple patches.
well,
touching
that's,
the release.
that's the main thing that jumps out at me is it's going to be hard, especially if you have like 4 patches for changes and you don't actually know if they're all going to land or not. It's going to be really hard to do this efficiently.
Yeah.
Unless you just wait until the end to do it, which means we're
And
probably
do
going
the
to
proper
forget
mix.
yeah.
Because I mean, ideally, it would be nice to have, you know, like VMAX dash Queens
Right.
dash, you know, and then we just update that one every time, but then you run into merge conflicts.
Yeah, I'm just not sure with the way this tooling works, how we would really efficiently do this.
Yeah.
Unless there's just some different way to use Reno that we're not doing, but I don't know.
Um,
It almost seems like you want like a feature request for Reno to where you could add a separate tag inside the release note file and say this is, you know, storewise, and then group them all based on that. But that would require changing the tooling and everything to actually do it. Because then we could do it the same way where they just land individually, but you could kind of generate something more organized out of it. So we could just talk to the Reno guys and ask them if they would be interested in adding features like that to Reno.
What did the,
Can you just open documentation?
oh, there is Nova. I don't want Nova.
I got the link this about.
Oh, did you? That's really small. Thank you. You're ahead of me. Okay, so.
So is this page ordered by like the alphabetical file names?
No, I don't think so.
Then what's the order?
No idea.
You can kind of see a general trend of like VMware's at the bottom. There's a bunch of S's together. If it's not done by the file name, I don't know how it ended up in this order.
Oh, yeah. So, VMware, VMDK, driver now supports known issues. Huh. Why is the following volume drivers are deprecated? Oh, and have now been removed. Like, why wasn't that in the deprecation section? Prog fixes. Other notes. I don't know. Well, that's weird, because you've got NetApp CDOT before Dell EMC. So I wonder if that's because the file name was CDOT and then.
No.
Because maybe we can kind of leverage the tool and make it do a little more of what we want.
We could, apparently we can create, we can change the sections configuration. So we could actually create one section for each driver. Like we have the features, the issues.
Yeah.
We could have the configuration. There's the default is features, issues, upgrade, deprecation. We could probably create new sections. That's for each driver. So instead of adding it to features or bugs, if you're changing something specific for a driver, you just use your own section.
Oh, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, but then I'm no longer making distinction between the features and the bug fixes for the.
Then you have to write your release note more meaningful.
Just like the other 95.
You have to choose either to group your driver-specific things into a section and everything is mixed, or you add it as a feature.
Well, isn't the format inside of the note that it has some of that information?
You have a template that it uses.
Oh, that's just the sections, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking just the we could customize right now.
That seems like what we would want to do is
Yeah.
But
figure out.
then we have the limitation that you have get for a driver, everything makes in. The features and the bug fixes all makes in.
Well, but shouldn't we be able to create, sounds like we need to play with the tool a little bit and see if I can create, for instance, LVM driver section and then add a feature, and then will the tool generate it so that it shows?
I don't think you can do
It
that.
looks
Maybe
like-
we can look.
It looks like you'd have to make a separate section for each, like, you'd have to have a section for like LVM features and a section for LVM fixes, which would work, it'd be kind of messy, but.
So, but would the tool generate LVM, so like LVM is a section and then under it features bugs?
It doesn't look like it does like subsections.
Okay.
It doesn't.
Oh, so it would have,
You would just have to make like a whole bunch of sections.
2 sections per driver is what you're saying, right? Which is not so good.
Feature and look at the same. Because usually for drivers, you don't have to make more than 5, 6 changes or features per release. And if we have for the core features, 2 sections, the sections that we needed for bug fixes and features, and then for drivers, all the changes related to that drivers, no matter if it's fixed or.
because I mean, right now, what sucks about this is it's like, okay, if I'm a user, sure, I'm gonna be interested in the general Cinder features, but then, if I'm,
And then maybe like 2 drivers and not the rest of them.
yeah, maybe I care about RBD and LVM, and I don't wanna have to read all the other shit.
Which is really messy here, because on this page, it's really hard to even, you have to read the entirety of each one to even figure out which driver.
But then, what if you have a separate folder for driver release notes? We should be able to do that without requiring changes in the
I'm looking into that, if we can actually configure right now to pick up from different developers.
Well, it takes an argument for it, but I don't really know what it
Yeah,
is.
that's, I'm looking into the concept pack to see if we actually have a way to specify that you have multiple directories and it should be.
maybe a separate code.py.
It may also be worth adding some guidelines on how to actually name these node things. We can a handful of them, because there's a bunch of them that start with the driver name, but then there's a bunch of them that start with the word add, because they add,
Yeah.
it's to driver. And now that we've kind of seen what the patterns are, it might be good to kind of standardize some of that too, just so they're easier to sort through.
Something like that.
Yeah.
For instance, driver add feature.
Yeah, you'd have add, remove, fix, you know, I don't know. Would cover most of it.
Okay, so I don't know that we need to belabor that further.
Well, so apparently landed a release note in the release notes/notes/release notes/notes folder.
Thanks.
What's trying to understand?
What?
Yeah, I don't find it. Something went wrong there somewhere.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, that's not,
Please get release note of the release note.
Yeah.
Look at it.
That probably happens if you run like Reno new in the wrong place or something.
it was Chavi.
Who is it?
Chavi Agarwal.
I can.
She's an IBMer.
It was actually a course under that I'm not a driver on.
Yeah,
How did you put it in the wrong place?
I don't
I
know.
don't know.
And how we,
Might be funny if you do that.
wonder who +2'd that one. No whammies, no whammies. Select, yeah.
So since that was for Queen, we might need to move it so it actually
Yeah,
shows up. Or maybe it does show up, but I don't know.
how is it? Anyway, yeah, I'll move that. Why is my hash that's on here not showing up in review? So I should be able to just drop it into review.openstack.org and look for it, right? Oh, there it is. Oh, shit. Okay. Oh, wait, no. Nope, it was Tommy and Sean that did that one. All right.
Just blame Sean, he's not here.
He's not here. All right. I would like to think I might have. All right, so this is another one that we're left with. We need cleanup, and it would be good to do. So.
Our only known issue listed in the Queen's release notes appears to just be a bug fix. I think it's actually a known issue. I think it's a known fixed issue.
Okay. So I should probably take a look at the release notes again, I'll make sure they make sense, backward if they don't.
I don't.
Um, So I will take that to continue to work on as it falls into the doc review. All right, let me update where we're at. All right, condensing standardized base header config options. So this was on Kendall's plate and she's not had a chance to work on it. Is it something we still want to try to look at? Do we want to continue to ignore the issue? Is there somebody who wants to pick it up? Maybe how much of a problem we have will become clear after I figure out how to document the config options.
If we have them not condensed, any automatic tool we create will be giving better results if we don't have them condensed.
Oh, the irony.
Specifically, for example, we put a driver inheritance from plant-based class. It's using a different configuration option to define the parameter.
Yeah, maybe each of these applications we have a different text or different defaults. So that's a default variable how you can use it.
No, but many of them don't even cannot even have a default. Like if you have a username or a password, it's like you have a default usually. And for IP addresses, you don't need it. So most of them don't have the problem of different.
So the answer for this one kind of comes down to we should probably get through figuring out the documentation part and all of that and not mess with this right now and revisit after we have better documentation and know how we're doing that, what we want to do going forward. Does that make sense? You know, I feel like the sprawl has slowed somewhat too. Since when we first started talking about this a couple PTGs ago, we went through a period where it seemed like there were tons of new config options coming in. And I think we've been better about controlling it with new drivers coming in.
Yeah, it still is a point of contention in most new driver reviews I look at, having to help people do that stuff right. But
Yeah.
they seem to be good about figuring that out before we land them out. So that's definitely good.
Hard drive?
It is an actual spinning disk.
Oh.
I'm so not used to hearing a spinning disk anymore. It's just like this.
Why are you putting this?
Yeah. I have to buy one first.
Just waiting for that ever so exciting.
At least when a SSD corrupts your data, it does it silently.
Yeah. What's wrong? I can't tell. I can't hear. Okay. So the agreement on this one is starting until ADD today. Details agreement. We won't play with this right now, as we have plenty of other options.
This work would be to remove duplicated options from drivers that add new options, which is already in core. For example, some IP, something like that.
What was that?
Is this talk about the drivers that have configuration that were already defined in other places in core, for example, some IP? Then there's a driver that has my some IP.
Yep, that was the goal, was to go through and take all of those where they had created duplicate options and basically do the same thing and change them to use the shared options that we have out there. But, you know, at this point, since new drivers aren't doing it, and I'm thinking it's maybe not worth the time at the moment, given that it's time's probably better spent trying to make sure the documentation is right. So.
There's one topic I don't know if we're to insert here. I added in the end of the topics from first day.
Yep.
And it's related to the new option that we added, the max hours prescription ratio that now supports auto. And there we have two other drivers that are doing basically the same thing, but with some other options. They were doing that before, but I'm pretty sure that the result, the formula is similar, and if we don't agree on this formula, we can just change the calculation, so it's something that everybody can work on that.
So this is for that new option that you added.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, but there are two drivers that are using something, a different name, but it's basically the same
It's
setting.
basically the same. Yeah, I think that the first thing would be to get to an agreement that we are talking about that the option does the same.
Yep.
I don't know, Patrick did some comments on the spreadsheet. Basically, for those that are not acquainted with this, we added to Cinder the ability to calculate the maximum oversubscription ratio, because in some scenarios, the administrator or admins would go and configure a backend and then set a value for the max oversubscription ratio, let's say 10 times of my backend capacity. And then at some point, the users start creating volumes, and then they reach that limit, but they still have free space. And then the admin needs to go there and change that value to something bigger, and then restart all the services. And at another point again, it would happen the same. So the idea of the feature was to have a formula to calculate these max oversubscription ratios. So don't have to go and toggle it every time. This guy will just slide automatically. And then when the user got out of space, then he would need to go there and add more disks anyway. So basically the formula is I got from one of the drivers. I did some small changes, but the result is exactly the same for all the three formulas, though they have minor difference. So if the admin sets the options to auto, it will only run out of space when he is out of space. So I think that's something that we could use only the default option, and that would be an option less to care about the other drivers.
I mean, I have no concern with consolidating drivers that have duplicate options to use the one that you added. I mean, propose it, and if the maintainers for that driver have no concerns.
Yeah, this discussion, actually, I would grab Patrick and talk to him, and there is the maintainer that I don't know if he's here, Nikesh.
I don't think he is.
Because they raised some concerns related to the formula not being exactly the same, but I just want to make sure that they understand that the result of the formula is exactly the same. Okay. So we can safely merge those options.
Sounds good to me. Anybody object? All in favor, say aye. All right. Do we want to hit one more thing before lunch, or do we want to take a break?
How big is the next thing?
It's from Tommy, so who knows?
What?
Yeah.
Officially lunch is in 20 minutes. Are we short on time?
No. We've got, I mean, at this rate, we're going to get through today's topics and can probably start pulling tomorrow's topics too. So.
Great.
Yep. All right, let's break for lunch and we'll see everybody back here at 1:30. Thank you.